everyone, and welcome to Pharmacology. Head over to pharmacology.com for complete study units. In today's video, we will be talking about drug distribution. Once a drug is absorbed, it is available in systemic circulation for delivery and distribution throughout the body. Distribution is the second step in the pharmacokinetic process and involves the movement of drug between intravascular spaces, and those are those spaces inside blood vessels, and the extravascular spaces, which is anything outside of the extravascular space, like your tissues, cells, organs, and the spaces surrounding them. How a drug distributes throughout the body is dependent on a number of factors, including the physical properties of the drug, the concentration of drug transporters, body composition, and the presence of disease. For more details on these, head over to pharmacology.com for the complete study unit. Once a drug enters systemic circulation, they begin to disperse from the intravascular spaces into the extravascular space until an equilibrium between the two spaces is established. Drug is continuously moving back and forth between those spaces. Only drug within the intravascular space is available for metabolism and elimination by the body. As the concentration of drug within systemic circulation decreases because of elimination, the drug in extravascular spaces re-establish the equilibrium by moving drug from their stores into systemic circulation. This cycle of elimination and equilibrium between the two spaces will continue until there is no drug left in the extravascular spaces to maintain equilibrium. But if a patient were to redose at a regular interval, the concentration in systemic circulation would be restored by redosing. This will allow the drug levels to be maintained in both the intravascular and the extravascular spaces. With repeated dosing, drug levels will reach a steady state concentration where movement through the cycle of equilibrium and elimination strikes a balance. Now that we have described how distribution occurs, let's talk about how we quantify it with the calculation of volume of distribution. Volume of distribution is a theoretical number. It does not actually correspond to a physical volume of space within the body. Before I define it, let me explain why it is needed. It makes more sense that way. We can measure the amount of drug in systemic circulation by drawing a blood sample and quantifying it. However, the amount in systemic circulation is not a true representation of all the drug in the body. It is hard or impossible to measure the concentration of drugs in tissues like the brains, lungs, and fat. Volume of distribution attempts to quantify the degree to which a drug's distribution will extend beyond the plasma volume. It indicates the tendency of a drug to remain in the blood or to distribute into body tissue. How we calculate volume of distribution is dependent on whether a drug follows a one-compartment or a multi-compartment model. In the one-compartment model, the body is thought of as a single compartment, or one bucket, if you will, in which the equilibrium between the intra and extravascular spaces occurs instantaneously and is as uniform as water. The single compartment model is useful when looking specifically at tissues that are highly perfused, like the liver and kidneys. In this model, elimination is linear. The drug concentration decreases predictably at a fixed time interval. The rate of elimination is constant, and because of this, with the one-compartment model, there is only one volume of distribution that can be calculated. If the body is one bucket, the volume of distribution is simply the amount of drug that we put in divided by the concentration of drug in the homogeneous bucket. Most drugs, however, will not follow the one-compartment model. The body is composed of many different tissues and organs, all with different properties that create theoretical buckets for drug distribution. The multi-compartment model attempts to account for this. We will use 3 body buckets to explain the concept of the multi-compartment model for volume of distribution. Our first bucket will be the plasma bucket. It represents drug in systemic circulation. Our second bucket is our adipose or fat tissue. And our third bucket is going to be muscle. Each of these buckets have unique properties that will influence how they receive drug from systemic circulation. One of the most important properties is water content. Muscle is made up of over 75% water. Fat tissue only has about 10%, and plasma has as much as 92% water. The higher the water content, the greater the ability to interact with water and water-loving molecules. Fat tissue is therefore lipophilic. It interacts best with fat-loving molecules. Muscle is hydrophilic. It interacts best with water-loving molecules. Drugs too fall somewhere on the spectrum from hydrophilic to lipophilic and will be more absorbed into the body buckets that prefer it. Let us consider a lipophilic drug, that is, a fat-loving drug. It will distribute to some extent into plasma and into muscle, but it will preferentially distribute into fat tissue. This explains why body composition is one of the factors that affects a drug's distribution. A hydrophilic drug, that is a water-loving drug, will show the opposite. It will distribute more into plasma than muscle because plasma has a higher water content than muscle, and more into muscle than fat because muscle has a higher water content than fat. In this illustration with a lipophilic drug, we see that fat tissue has the greatest stores of drug. As systemic quantities decrease because of elimination, as we discussed earlier, both muscle and fat will release their stores of drug to re-establish equilibrium. Over time, muscle will have released all of its drug, while fat tissue will continue to redistribute and re-establish equilibrium. When both muscle and fat are contributing to maintaining equilibrium, the volume of distribution will be different than when only fat tissue is maintaining equilibrium. This is why the multi-compartment model has a time-dependent volume of distribution, while the one-compartment model has a fixed volume of distribution. There is so much more to be said about drug distribution in the body. This video has hopefully helped you to truly visualize what is happening so that you can derive rather than memorize answers. The complete study unit is available at pharmacology.com. Thank you for watching.